One tiny error processing an invoice can cost an organization dearly. And regrettably, there are many simple, small mistakes that get made every day across organizations of all sizes. These errors have a direct financial impact on the financial viability of the organization. That's why, despite what some may think, they really are a big deal. What's more, frequently, the person processing the invoice doesn't realize what they are doing is not correct and unintentionally creates a financial issue. We've identified quite a few of these all too common mistakes and we'll share not only the mistake, but also the problems caused by the action, because sometimes it's not real obvious. Make sure you stick around until the end when we discuss the one area many never consider to be an issue, but obviously it is. Hey guys, I'm Mary Schaefer, founder of AP Now, your one-stop shop for cutting-edge business intelligence if you work and manage or have responsibility for the accounts payable and or payment function. And by the way, if I leave anything out, please share it in the comments. That way, we can all be on the lookout for these problems. Rookie invoice processing mistake number one. Just paying when invoices show up without bothering to validate the information or that, for that matter, the invoice is valid. The problems caused by this mistake are several. Number one, you definitely end up paying invoices twice if you do this, especially with about 25% of all invoices now being spent multiple times. What's more, when you do this, if your supplier realizes that your controls are not up to snuff, a few devious ones will continue to send duplicate copies, causing you to make duplicate payments on a regular basis. Not only that, you'll end up paying the wrong amount. You'll end up only paying partial invoices. And most troubling, you'll end up paying fraudulent invoices when some crook has decided to send something that was really not an invoice. So don't just pay whatever invoice shows up. You need to do some verifications. And hopefully most of you are. Rookie invoice processing mistake number two. If an invoice shows up for an amount of money that is lower than what was on the purchase order, you go ahead and just pay the lower amount. Now you may think, oh, good, we saved a few dollars, maybe they had the price wrong, etc. But this can create numerous problems. For example, it may have only been a partial invoice, and they may have been billing you at the wrong price. Then another invoice will show up for the remainder of the invoice, and if your ERP system won't take duplicate invoices with the same number against the same purchase order number, you may not be able to process. Basically, if the invoice has a different price on it than the purchase order, that should be a sign that there is a problem and you need to investigate and figure out what it is. Rookie invoice processing mistake number three, not asking a question when you don't understand something. Sometimes people, especially when they're new at a job and they think something's been explained to them, they don't want to look stupid. They don't want to look like they don't know what's going on. And so they have a question, they're not sure about something, and they don't ask. Big mistake. There are many problems that can be caused when you do this. Number one, you can be duplicate paying. You can be coding wrong. There are so many different mistakes you can make that all will end up with the company paying more than once, paying the wrong supplier, paying the wrong amount, etc. So if you don't understand or you're not sure, ask. Better to ask and not make the mistake than to take a guess, make the mistake, and then when it's uncovered, not so pretty. Rookie invoice processing mistake number four, not paying attention when entering data to all the data, not just the dollar amount and the purchase order number. Now, to be honest, if I was processing an invoice, that's what I would focus on. But there are problems caused by this mistake. For starters, if you don't enter the invoice number correctly, then when a duplicate shows up, it is apt to be processed, because invoice number is one of the primary ways companies identify potential duplicates and stop from making the duplicate payment. So pay attention to all the data, not just the dollar amount and the purchase order number. Invoice number really important. Obviously, address really important. Payee important. You don't want to pay the wrong payee. So basically, all the parts of the invoice are important. Rookie invoice processing mistake number five. If the invoice can't be entered because the ERP says the invoice number is a duplicate, don't just add a space or a dot or a letter to force it through. Why? What's the problem with this? Well, the ERP is telling you you've already processed this invoice, so it's a duplicate. So either the invoice number was not entered correctly the first time, or this is a duplicate copy. You need to stop and do the research and make sure it is a legitimate invoice before proceeding. Don't just assume it is because it's been approved. Rookie invoice processing mistake number 6, not using the rigid coding standard provided by the company. This is actually the best way any organization can protect itself against making duplicate payments. Now, it may seem very, confining that you have to enter the data exactly as the company tells you should be entering it, but this is their best protection against duplicate payments. So what problems can be caused if you don't do this? Well, you'll make a duplicate payment. And of course, as we've already discussed, if you make a duplicate payment, sometimes the vendor realizes you don't have your act together, and maybe a few of them will try and get you to make the same mistake again. Now, sometimes folks will say to me, well, when we make a duplicate payment, won't the supplier automatically return it? And the answer to that is 99% of the time, the answer is a resounding no. Suppliers don't automatically return duplicate payments. Sometimes they give you credits, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you find out about those credits, sometimes you don't. So use the rigid coding standard, even though you may have a more creative way to enter the data. Rookie invoice processing mistake number 7, not returning invoices without the name of the purchaser or a purchase order number to the supplier so that they can give you all the information you need. Problems that this can cause include wasting a lot of valuable resources in accounts payable. Too often what we'll see is somebody going around from person to person trying to figure out, hey, who ordered this? Who should I send it to for approval? Not a good use of your time. And you know what? Your suppliers should know better, okay? This is not some esoteric requirement. This is kind of basic accounting 101. So just return the invoice with a very polite letter saying you need to have this additional information. Now, you might say, well, why don't I just, call them up? You can do that, but by returning it, you're hoping to change their behavior for the future so that you don't have to deal with this problem again. Rookie invoice processing mistake number 8, paying from a statement. Okay, so best practice for accounts payable departments, with a few minor exceptions, never pay from a statement. This can cause a lot of problems when it comes to canceling out purchase orders so that they're not used again when a second invoice shows up. So if you pay from a statement, too often what happens is an organization pays from a statement and they pay 3 or 4 or 5 or however many invoices are on that statement. And then when those individual invoices show up, they go ahead and also pay the invoices. So another duplicate payment. And I've already shared with you what happens with duplicate payments, so I won't bore you to tears and go through it anymore. Rookie invoice processing mistake number 9, not recognizing vendor credits and then paying them. So we try and encourage managers when they're training new staff to process invoices that they train their staff to recognize vendor credits, because that's actually money that is owed to the company, not money that you owe. And so when you pay a vendor credit, what you end up doing is doubling the existing liability from your supplier to you. And the problem that this causes is the company loses money. They don't get the vendor credit, and now they're out even more money. So as part of training your new invoice processes, make sure that everybody recognizes vendor credits. They know what to look for and what to do with them once they see them. Rookie invoice processing mistake number 10, printing emailed invoices. Okay. This creates a lot of extra work for the accounts payable staff. You've got some efficiencies that you can gain by having invoices emailed, but then if somebody takes the time to print the invoice and then use that printed invoice to key data, they've wasted some time, and we're not even going to talk about the environmental impacts of this. So basically, it just makes your accounts payable function a little less efficient and productive than it could be. And of course, the solution for this, and hopefully everybody who's listening to this has already done this, and so you don't have to go out and do it, is your invoice processes should have 2 screens. And that way they can put the invoice copy up on one screen and they can do the data entry on the other. And there's no need whatsoever to print invoices. I know in some cases where this has become such a problem, managers have taken away the ability to print invoices from their team, but hopefully you don't get to that point. Rookie invoice processing mistake number 11, not returning invoices that don't have sales tax broken out. Now, this is not some real obvious, but sales tax, it's the responsibility of the payer, that's you, to make sure it's paid, but it's the responsibility of the seller to collect it and remit it. And so if you get an invoice that just shows, you paid $100 and is silent on the question of sales tax, then if you are subject to a sales and use tax audit, the auditor is going to say, oh, but you didn't pay sales tax on this item that you should have paid sales tax on. So simple solution: when you get the invoice for something that you thought you should have paid sales tax on, you want to go back to the supplier and ask them to break out the sales tax so you can show them what that you've actually paid it. Rookie invoice processing mistake number 12, not doing the three-way match before scheduling an invoice for payment. The three-way match is where you compare the invoice to the purchase order and the receiving document, and this is your way of verifying that you would charge the right item, the right amount, that you got the right amount. They didn't, instead of shipping you 100 items, ship you 1,000, and now they're trying to collect payment for it. It's a way to make sure that the invoice is accurate. Okay, if you don't do the three-way match, then you can end up paying the wrong amount, paying too much. All these are not positive things, positive outcomes, if you will, for your organization. Now, there are many ways that the three-way match can go wrong if it's not done correctly. These problems compound the headaches that are created by making some of the rookie invoice mistakes that we are talking about in this broadcast. That's why we recently did a short video on three-way match worst practices, and I hope you're not using any of them, which you can watch right now using the link that will appear on your YouTube screen and is in the description. As always, I appreciate your likes, your shares, your comments, and your subscribes.